What's up, YouTube? This is me, Asian Dave, aka Fanatical for Jesus, aka Daw Way, aka David Chu. Coming to you real quick. I want to talk about a little something. One of the most common objections to the precept method of apologetics that atheists like to bring up is, well, what about the Muslim God? What about the Buddhist? What about Buddhism? Like, what about Hinduism and yada yada yada? Um, First off, the debate between Christianity versus atheism is a debate between the Christian worldview and the atheist worldview. So by the atheist positing the Muslim God only begs the question of are you willing to get are you giving up your atheism now to defend Islam? I mean, that because the debate is between the Christian worldview and the atheist worldview. So, an atheist like to do this to distract from the actual debate. So they'll bring this up just as a red herring. Like, and you gotta be careful when you hear this because atheists will slip this in just to distract you and bring you down a rabbit trail. And if you don't see it, if you don't acknowledge it in time, next thing you know, you're going down a whole different rabbit trail than what the debate is supposed to be actually about. Like, so you gotta make sure you hold the atheists accountable and keep them from doing this. Just bring it up to them, be like, so are you giving up your atheist worldview to defend Islam now? Because honestly, like Christians should, we don't have it. I don't have any problem debating a Muslim about whether or not the Quran is true. But that's if I'm debating a Muslim or a Jehovah Witness. Then the debate is completely entirely different than when you're debating an atheist. The debate between a Christian and a Muslim is entirely different. The debate between a Christian and a Jehovah Witness is entirely different. But when you have a debate against an atheist, you gotta make sure you hold them to you have to keep them on track because atheists like to distract from the actual debate. They won't because they don't want to talk about Christianity versus atheism because they know that they have no ground to stand on when it comes to the debate. So instead of being honest and admitting that they have no ground to stand on morally, logically, and morally and logically they have no ground to stand on, they will try and distract from the debate so you won't be so they don't have to admit it. That's how dishonest atheists really are. They will distract from the debate just so no one can tell that they don't have any ground to stand on. And the other thing they like to bring up is when it comes to the topic of morality, they like to say, well, if you need God to be moral, then that make you an immoral person. Well, first off, according to the Bible, every single person is an immoral person. We're all wicked. Every single one of us, regardless of who you are, every single one of us are wicked because the heart is deceitfully wicked. So that I mean, that's what that is. Second off, everybody gets their morality the same way because we're all made in the image of God. So it's not that we need God to be moral. It's every single person is made in the image of God. That's why every single person can know what's right and wrong. So in a sense we all depend on God for what's right and wrong because we're made in His image, and that makes us moral beings. I know an atheist isn't gonna understand this. They're not gonna be able to wrap it around their heads. But I know other believers will be able to understand this. Um, and another thing they like to bring up without any justification is, well, the Bible condones slavery, so your God is immoral. First off, how can you get off with saying slavery is immoral when you have yet to even establish how you know what is moral or immoral? You have yet to establish how you know what good and evil is. So how can you claim to know what evil is to begin with? You can't. You have yet to establish it. You could say, "Oh well, we have empathy, so that's how we know that what evil is." Okay, but what makes empathy indeed good? How do you know that empathy is good? Like I've said before, you cannot you have to have an objective standard of good and evil in order to know what evil really is or what good really is. Without that objective standard, it's all arbitrary and up to someone's opinion. Like, I like chocolate ice cream, you like vanilla ice cream. So you need to actually come up with you need to actually tell me how you know something to be objectively good or evil without borrowing from the Christian worldview. And that's what atheists do. Whenever they argue against Christianity, in order for them to argue against Christianity, they must first borrow from the Christian worldview just to argue against the Christian worldview. Cornelius Van Til called it borrowed capital. Atheists are living off of borrowed capital. That's what they're living off of. So, yeah, so anyways, so that's pretty much the three most common objections that I get when it comes to defending the Christian faith. And as you can see, all three of those objections could easily be refuted, but atheists will never admit it because atheists are dishonest and they don't want to admit that they have no ground to stand on. They just want to just live in denial. But like it says, like Paul said in Romans chapter 1, for the wrath of God is revealed against all unrighteousness and ungodliness of men, for they suppress the truth in unrighteousness. That's what an atheist is doing. They're suppressing the truth. They're holding it down because they don't want to acknowledge the truth of God. They don't want to acknowledge that they truly believe that God exists. They're unconscious theists. And another thing that atheists like to say, well, how can you tell me what I believe? And they get all mad and bent out of shape about this. No, I'm not telling you what you believe. I'm telling you what God says you believe. I'm not telling you at all what you believe. I'm telling you what God's word says. And you could say, well, I don't believe in his word. Okay, well, actually, well, if you don't, if you, everybody's going off of a script. Everybody's worldview is based on a script. The Christian's worldview is based off the Bible. The atheist worldview is based off their mind. So everybody's going off of a script. Everybody's worldview is. And the only difference is my script is written down while your script is not written down. That's the only difference. So the only way we can know whose script is right is whose script is more in line with reality and more logically sufficient. Whereas that's the Christian worldview. The atheist script is not logically sufficient because they have to borrow from the Christian worldview just to argue against it. Anyway, so that's all I have to say for now. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And as always, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Anyways, have a good day. God bless you. And stay awesome, Gotham. Deuces.